Oh, hello there. Holding on to my theme of yapping about stories, fantasy, lore and stuff like that, I really wanted to talk about League of Legends. And don't worry, it's only about the lore. I know the game can be a little contentious at times. What I really want to talk about is the lore of League of Legends, which I really enjoy actually. Reading the lore and the short stories and watching YouTubers describe the lore was something that I really enjoyed when I was younger and also now actually. And there really is some banger lore, like Kindred, Ornn or Pantheon, and also like the world building with the world runes, Shurima, Targon, or like, the Watchers and Freljord, just to name a few things. And yeah, there's also the very obvious one in the room, so to speak, which is, Arcane. And that's probably like the big one when people think about the lore of League of Legends and stories in League of Legends. Though, like, there's a lot of other things also other than Arcane, though of course that one is the big one. So what I'm going to do for the rest of this video is basically criticize the lore and the world building in League of Legends. But it's truly from a place of love and from a place of, come on, do more, advance the lore, god damn it, do something cool, please. So it's not really to hate on the lore itself, but we're gonna get to that later. And I'm just going to like spoil the video right now. When I say that League lore is kinda stuck, what I really mean is that in many areas, there's so many super interesting plot points, characters, character arcs, and like so much more. That is kind of like just there. It's basically like frozen in time, just existing, but not like continuing, so to speak. And I know this argument is a little weird because we just got new lore with like Sing Sao dying and merging with Sahan, and Yanara going on an adventure in Demacia, and Libang doing whatever she's doing. But at least for me, it very much feels like Riot has crafted this amazing world with all these interesting characters and plots, but then they kind of get stuck at the zenith of the conflict, or the interesting part, because you can't really complete the story without, really changing the lore. Like, things have to continue, and when they continue, things of course happen in the lore. So they're really careful with not advancing things too fast, or at all actually. Especially with the bigger plot points, like with the world runes. And I can give you tons of other examples of what I mean with this. For example, we have the Watchers in Ice in Freljord, basically just, ready to burst out with the Void, but not really doing it yet. We have Belveth trying to begin to take over, while also kind of being in conflict with Rek'Sai. With Rek'Sai, you have Pantheon fighting the guards of Targon. You have Aatrox basically fighting everything. You have Shurima with Azir and Seraph basically beginning to do things. But that plot point with Shurima in general has kind of just, been standing still since Azir got released basically. And as I mentioned before, you have Ryze collecting these world runes, slowly corrupting him, but him still doing his best to collect them, championing through, just fighting through it, since they can basically end the world in the wrong hands. He got a really freaking good cinematic, but after that, especially that one with Ryze is kind of weird to me because like the whole cinematic and Ryze's lore in general with the world runes kind of feel like he has like protagonist status-ish with him going all over the world interacting with characters a little bit. So yeah, that one just feels like a lot of missed opportunity, or at least frozen possibility and opportunity, so to speak. You have the whole Shadow Isle thing with Viego, which by the way has been through a whole story of course. But even though that did happen a lot of stuff with Sentinels of Lights and all that, Viego kind of just got imprisoned now, but is still there, so didn't really change much. And I actually had to like Google and read up on the lore on that again because I was so uninterested in that plot point, because the whole thing, as most people would probably agree with, was kind of a little bit of weird how it was handled, and I wasn't even that interested in the whole plot thingy at the start. At least Yorick was in it a little bit, I suppose, so that's kind of cool. And to that, Mordekaiser is just chilling, not doing much, even though he's like all powerful and scary and stuff. So it kind of feels like the world of Runeterra needs to push like onward and, progress the stories. Which it also does to some extent, for example with Sing Sao, merging with Sahan and dying. So yeah, rest in peace to him. And yeah, I know Arcane has become canon, which means everything that happens, in Arcane is canon. Which of course does send a lot of plot points forward. But man, I think that makes everything a little more confusing. Though at least that is an attempt to, push things forward. But yeah, there's a lot of plot points that kind of conflict a little bit with the regular lore. That's kind of interesting to see what's up there and what's going on there. Because I really like Arcane, but man, that was a lot of stuff did happen there. So it's kind of interesting how they like are gonna need to like have it merge with the existing lore, so there's not like plot holes and stuff like that. So it kind of feels like, not in all cases, like I mentioned before, the plot is moving forward with some of the things, but it feels like we are kind of on the top of the curve of a lot of stories, but we are never really reaching the conclusion or the end, always being on the top of the conflict, you know, because you kind of need conflict to have an ongoing story. But it just feels a little frustrating, because I really want to see what happens with, you know, Seraph and Azir, or with Pantheon, or Aatrox, or Rise, especially Rise. I love that guy. So yeah, following up on that, I'm quite interested in seeing what they're going to do with like the League MMO RPG thingy. You are really going to need to, you know, establish some plot lines and then also commit to finishing them. Like, can you imagine having them do a final boss thingy like they did with Viego, but like with Mordekaiser? But you know, you don't defeat him at the end, you just, you know, seal him away. Or maybe like Swain beats LeBlanc, but then you see she's still creeping around in the shadows. So you can't end the plot points, but it doesn't really have an impact because nothing changes too much and you still need the characters to some extent. So yeah, but hey, if I have to argue a little bit against my own case, as I've already done also, Riot has clearly shown that they are not afraid of killing their own characters with Arcane and again with Singzao for example. Especially since Arcane is canon now. So maybe they will actually commit to like some resolutions and to have some, I don't know what you want to call it, like impact in the story and like the consequences of the plots if they actually choose to push them forward. Instead of just having people sealed away or returning late or nearly escaping. But for things like the newer plot lines that we got right now, like with Mill in Noxus or Yanara in Demacia, I'm sure the stories are going to be fine. But I'm like 75% sure that every story that unfolds with them is not really gonna have like a big impact on the world or like the world building or the lore. Like Demacia will just continue to be Demacia, whatever happens in the current ongoing lore. But it would be awesome if I'm wrong and like some big changes happen. Like, that would be really cool, so I hope for it of course. And again, I really like the lore of League of Legends. And at the end of the day, the lore of League of Legends is just to like supplement the product, which is the game of course. So I have full understanding for the fact that you can't just, you know, have an end to the lore of an happy ever after ending or something like that. Because things need to happen and to continuously happen and to continuously engage the players. So I guess I'm kind of just complaining without giving like an actual solution, but at least I am complaining from a place of love, so you know, I hope that's okay to some extent. God, I really like Bard. I've already made a video that is pretty old now about him. But that character and his whole shtick is so amazing, and I really like Pantheon too. He's so cool, he's just so cool. And now he's like just a man fighting like the gods, but he's like the abilities of the God of War and stuff like that. It's so cool, and I just want more, and I want the lore to advance and do cool stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Thank you for listening. And who knows, maybe Riot is doing the right thing by, you know, very slowly advancing the plots and being kind of nimble and what cautious, I suppose is the word. So they can still have an ongoing world of lore to draw from while still drip feeding people like me some advances in lore. To be fair, it would for example be pretty kind of bad if like they advanced Aurelion Sol's lore and he escaped. Since if he got free or something like that, he would probably just like blast Runeterra, which is not so proactive, so I understand that. But yeah, anyhow, thanks so much for watching and listening to me yap a little bit. And again, literally just listening to me yap about a random thing that I've been thinking about, which I really enjoy and I'm quite passionate about, because I really like the lore. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. And remember to be kind to yourself. Bye bye!